Welcome to Wisdom Within with Tina and Tanya. Do you ever find yourself in a bad mood, maybe after you've been scrolling through social media, or you feel drained after listening to someone vent about their problems? There's a reason for that, and we're diving into it today. And we have an idea for you, a topic that we're going to explore about a mental diet. Hi, I'm Tanya, and I help women break free from the constant pressure to give more than they receive. And I help them to feel valued and appreciated, helping them reconnect with their inner wisdom through spiritual tools and practices.
And I'm Tina, and I help women over 45 who have spent years putting others first and are wondering who they are now, figure out what's next, build meaningful connections, and bring joy and purpose back into their lives.
So, welcome, welcome. I'm excited for this topic today. I know this is something that Tina and I have both been I don't want to say struggling, but maybe dealing with. And that is the junk food that we have been putting into our minds and how that is affecting us in a variety of ways. So really looking at this idea of a mental diet, just like the food that we eat that nourishes or harms our physical bodies, what we consume mentally affects our emotional mental health, and I would even say energetic health as well. So, what are your thoughts with that? What have you had going on? Let's kind of share some of what we've been experiencing because I know
So,
I've got stuff.
yeah. So I was just telling you today that I struggled over the weekend because I've been I've been working really hard on my mindset. I've been doing some major work on my mindset between taking walks, listening to Joe Dispenza is my favorite right now, and I've been listening to a lot of his stuff right now, and other podcasts that are just all uplifting, and all this mindset stuff I'm doing. Well, I decided this weekend to watch some movies that are not they're you know like what killing and violence and yeah,
Death and
cop
destruction.
movies, yeah. Some movies about uh the end of the world. I mean, just different things like that. And I noticed I was not sleeping. I had a heck of a time trying to sleep and starting to spiral back down into these feelings of, you know, the doom and gloom, and I do notice that too when I go through when I scroll when I'm doing a lot of doom scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, how it affects my mental health. And so um but you know I mean, there's so much of it that we can do. We listen to the news, we listen to, and it all affects me. So those are some of the things that I've been dealing with recently.
And I too have been working really hard on my mindset. And I think it's important to remember for the listeners as well that, um, you and I both have been doing this for a very long time. And it's just like someone who's going to the gym and eating really healthy. At any point, if we start to slack off on some of those things, um, it starts to come in, right? And so that's
Right.
what I've definitely been recognizing that some of my best healthy practices have actually sometimes turned more toxic for me. So, for example, I've been listening to a novel series and it's been fun and it's part of my self-care to help me disconnect from work mode. And the first several books were amazing. The last book shifted focus and it really started to affect my mental health because it was pissing me off. Just the way that this main character was behaving and being a diva, and it was so not shit that I am okay with. And so I found myself halfway through the book being more irritated by her behavior, the character's behavior in the book, the things that were going on. And I just was like, this isn't good for me anymore. It served its purpose. I really have that conditioning in me that I have to finish the book that I started. I can't and I'm like, no, you can. It's not helpful anymore. So halfway through, I completely just dropped it. and it's not serving me. And I really feel like it doesn't always have to be real life events like what you were saying with the movie, what I was saying with the novel, as well as social media and all the things. It's just really remembering that what you let in, what we consume in whatever format, whether it's something we're reading or listening to or watching or whatever, or even people that we're around, it really does influence how we feel. It influences how we act, it influences how we see the world, and it's really important to choose wisely in that, in what we choose to consume, just for our mental health just as much as we would with what we're putting into our bodies food wise and physically.
Mhm. Definitely. And it's so easy to get caught up in that. It's so easy to get caught up in the news and the world events, or so easy to get caught up in Facebook and the scrolling and the fighting on Facebook or the Instagram uh scrolling, or even YouTube. We can get caught up in watching those videos that aren't quite um conducive to good mental health. So, yeah, it's really important to pay attention. It's just like when we're like, just like what you said about how we're eating and what are we putting in our bodies. And we can be all of this, doing all these things so good for our bodies, but then we start backtracking or start forgetting or start, oh, I'll just try a little bit of this or try a little bit of that. And before we know it, we're on that junk food diet again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with our mental diet. Is that what we
Mm-hmm.
called this? Mental
Yes,
diet.
mental diet. I love it. So, do you
Yeah.
have any of the ideas or any information on some of the science behind how what we put in mentally affects our brain and our mood? I know you've been kind of in that world for a minute.
So with the we get those dopamine hits, right? When we're going through social media, we're looking at um we get these likes and we get these cool things happening, or we get friend requests or whatever. But also, as we're going through social media, we're scrolling, and um, our minds, I don't know, it's like, and there's so much information, but our minds, we get all these dopamine hits and we get addicted to that dopamine. And that's a hard one to let go of. And that's um one of the things that happens. And then we have cortisol spikes from the negative stuff. So if we see, the news, or we see people fighting on Facebook, and we're like reading all the comments and like watching everything that they're saying, we're getting those cortisol spikes, which is really messing with our system. And so we have the dopamine, we have the cortisol, and that really can cause us to be in these fight or flight. We're having the fight or flight. We're feeling really good about something for a minute, and then and so our system is like way out of whack. And we become addicted to those feelings. We become addicted to those having those spikes in our cortisol, having those spikes in our dopamine. And so um, I think those are some of the two biggest things that I've learned that we have going on. And then um, when we are exposing ourselves to all of these things, it's starting to rewire our brains. It's just like when I talk about a gratitude practice, when we're doing a gratitude practice every day, we're rewiring our brain so that we are seeing the positive, right? When we're watching all this negative stuff, or we're getting those, this stuff from Facebook, from Instagram, from the news, or we're reading these crazy books, or we're reading um, or we're listening to uh, all these, we're
Just
going down all these rabbit holes.
yeah,
Yeah.
negative inputs that we have coming in.
Negative. Yeah. And we have all this negative input. It's rewiring our brains to start to see more of that and start to be more of that. So, it's really it can be really detrimental to our nervous system and to really um, put us in that fight or flight mode more than we normally would be if we were not doing that.
Hmm. And I think too, because when we really talk about like the dopamine hits, for me, that's validation. That
Mhm.
can be that hit where it validates the way that I'm feeling or it validates my views. And we are going to that, searching for that validation, that confirmation. And one thing that I think is important to remember too is that we can also do this and get in that addictive thinking cycle with healing. And I've
Mhm.
seen that as well within myself where I'm so focused on healing that I get stuck in this healing loop and I never come out of it. I'm always doing the work or I'm stuck in that. I need to know more. I need to understand more. I need to heal more. And that's just as stressful and creates just as much of the dopamine and or cortisol or maybe even a concoction of both. We'll have little cocktails here of this.
Right.
But that can also, working on my mental health and focusing on, I don't want to say the negative, but kind of like focusing on the stuff I'm working through,
Mhm.
coming out of, um, the challenges, the struggle. Like we get so, it's important to be aware of those, but we don't want to spend all of our time there. And I think that's another area where we can kind of get stuck. And when we're talking about those, rewiring our brain and even the neuroplasticity, which is really literally rewiring our brain and creating new neural pathways, if we're always walking that mental path of, I'm not well, I need healed, I'm not well, this is a struggle, this is my challenge, these are whatever those buzzwords are, we're digging that um,
Mhm.
pathway there. So the mindset work that, like what you were talking about, is very different where it's bringing in gratitude, it's bringing in viewing the world in a different way, recreating, focusing on the visualization of what we want our life to be, really helping ourselves to create that new pathway. Um,
Yes.
and so even though we're doing something that is positive for ourselves, we can really get stuck in that spiral of what's not going well still.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Totally. I totally agree with that.
and then even the people that we're around, we're absorbing their emotions. We have empathic responses to people. We
Yeah.
can really sense, can really feel, can really have understanding, and that's beautiful because it helps us to become more compassionate, more caring, more loving. But at the same time, if we're taking it on and we're absorbing that, I mean, I'm seeing all sorts of human design things in my mind right now
Yeah.
with all of that. But if we're overly identifying with that something that belongs to someone else, we're
Yeah.
bringing it in
Yeah.
more
Definitely.
on a more personal level and
Mm.
owning something that's not even ours.
Right. And then we start thinking that that's the way we feel or that's the way we are or that's the way and it's actually not even doesn't even belong to us.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did a video on that about others energies. I can't remember the name of the video, but um
We'll find it and put it in the
yeah,
description
yeah,
below.
we'll put that in. But yeah, it does when we are around others and we are because we you know it's just like you can walk into a room sometimes and be hanging out with a group of people and you leave and you're grumpy. It's kind of like what you said earlier about after you watch, something about how you can be grumpy from watching that stuff. Well, it's the same as when you're in a group of people, you can leave, you pick up all this energy with those people and you leave and all of a sudden you've got this whole different attitude and at most of the time it's not even yours. You walked in a good mood, everything was going good. You walk out and you're feeling pissed off and grumpy and that's when you need to learn good hygiene too. So, energetic hygiene. We have a video on that. And that will help you to start to clear that energy. But watch who you're hanging out with because a lot of times when we're when we get into groups or we get into our families, we get into um, these relationships, sometimes they're not as good for us as we think they might be. It's like sometimes we start to get into gossiping, right? We sit there and talk about we have groups of friends that will get together and talk about this other friend, or we have a lot of different negative things that can happen, or this friend is always continually complaining, or we get together and we complain together, or we get together and we are bitching about our job or whatever. And so we have to watch who we're hanging out with on a regular basis in that way too, that helps us to, um, so that when we're aware of that, we can, if we want to hang out with this person, we can step into it and say, if they start complaining, we are not engaging. And a lot of times that kind of messes with the relationship, because most of the time our relationship is based on those common complaints or those common things that are going on in our lives. So yeah, the others energy is really, it's a powerful thing too.
It really is. And that was one of me, like when I started recognizing signs of things that were affecting me in that way, that was one that was key. That was way before I was into energy work. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even have energy as a language. And I remember um, noticing how things were impacting my energy, but also my mental wellness. So, um, a specific example I have in my life, my when my kids were little, and there was a day that I was picking them up from my mom's, and um, my mom and I have had a tough relationship forever, pretty much forever, and um, there was an undercurrent simmering anger within her toward me all the time. So there was a particular day where I stopped to just pick up my kids. They'd gone over to her house after school, so I just go in long enough to, get your coats and book bags and shoes and all that, and let's go. And I could feel that simmering when I got inside. Didn't even know what was going on. I just knew I wanted to get out of there very quickly. So we get out, I get my kids all in the vehicle, and we're pulling away, and I'm barking at them. I'm snapping at them. I'm irritated and they're not doing anything wrong. And I remember stopping in the driveway, putting it in park, and I turned around to them and I'm like, I'm sorry. This is not you. This is not how I want our interaction to be, because they hadn't even done anything. They'd literally
Mhm.
like gotten their stuff, gotten out in the car, and here we are. And I knew in that moment, even though I didn't have all the knowledge I have now, I knew that I had picked up that from my mom, and the anger and the irritability and the barking and all the things. And so I had turned around then and expressed that and was like passing on the love to them. I
Mhm.
was like, no. So it starts with that awareness, and choosing differently too, I feel was really important, to be like, no, I'm not. But when we look at how so much of that is just happening in our lives in the background without us really knowing what's going on, way before I knew how to shield or what to do with any of that energy, um, those were some of the signs that I would recognize though when I was picking things up from other people. And even though it was affecting me energetically, it was also affecting my thoughts, my mood, my mind, and that mental wellness as well.
Yeah, yeah, I've had a lot of times like that too, and it does. So
I know that you mentioned something about sleep. What are some other signs that you have that help you recognize when you're having a poor mental diet, we'll say?
when I'm allowing shit in,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm doing the scrolling, when I'm doing the watching crazy movies, the sleep is the big one. But I was telling you earlier, I've noticed that my body is just like really talking to me. It's like it's telling me, it's basically telling me, no, this is not my gut, everything. And that's my reaction. So, I don't know what it would be for somebody else, but that's my reaction. I've had I feel I felt like I'm spiraling and getting into that dark again where um, I'm obsessing on thoughts. I'm obsessing on things that um, don't even matter right now or not even um, relevant, you know. And so I'm obsessing. I'm getting obsessive on thoughts when I'm starting to spiral. I'm getting um, just feeling that depression coming back again because that was the reason why I'm doing all this mindset work is to not be in the depression. So I'm seeing that. I'm seeing how I feel lower, and you know, so when I know that I'm consuming this diet, that's what I'm feeling is more. I'm feeling lower. I'm not able to focus. I tried to do my my meditation this morning after watching those movies this weekend that were not good for me. And I had to really work at getting my mind in the right place. I did one meditation, and I couldn't focus it. I just kept going back to those obsessive thoughts, and I did. I finally, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I've got to get my mind in a better place. And I sat down and did another meditation and was able to finally get my mind back into a different place. And so those are some of the things that I see in myself is like I can't focus. I can't sleep. Sleep's the biggest one for me. And um I can't I start um obsessing on those thoughts and the negative self-talk comes in too. It's like I'm beating myself up because I watched the stupid movies. Or I'm like, oh, this is it's like, you know, I'm trying to visualize this life, this new way of being, and then the thought comes in that, well, you know, that's not going to happen, or you can't do that, or what are you thinking, and stuff like that. And so yeah, those are some of the things that I really noticed, especially this last little time. I've been noticing it a lot, um, especially since I've been doing this mindset work. And I do notice it in the past, and especially if I look back on the past and what I was putting in my mind, you know, I can correlate those things back to, you know, the stuff that I'm thinking about or I'm reading about or I'm listening to. I can correlate my moods to pretty much all of that. So,
Mhm. And I think sometimes we have to remember that some of the input can be from our own experiences. And
mhm,
something that you said reminded me of one of the things I'm catching in myself, and that is reflecting on my past. And I like to do that because I do a lot of shadow work. I love to extract the lesson in the struggle or the whatever and create meaning. I mean, I very much feel there's so much meaning in our experiences, even the ugly, right? But sometimes I get stuck there. And sometimes I view it as okay, there was a time in my past where I felt more stable, where I felt more secure, where I felt more supported in even sometimes the work that I used to do or the way that I used to do it, my habits and practices that served me so well back then. And I can sometimes that is great because it's like, where can I recreate those systems in my current experience to be able to feel supported, support myself, all those things. But when I spend too much time back there in the past, I get stuck there. And then I end up comparing. And like you're saying, the negative self talks and the negative thought comes in of all the things in relation to that. So I know that sometimes, even though I'm not necessarily consuming social media or TV or anything that's coming in, I can create that negative
mhm,
cycle in myself So it's not always an external influence. Sometimes it can be something that's going on within. And then, of
Intrinsic.
course, everything that I scroll on social media or conversations that I have are all reinforcing that belief as well. Um, and I think I do the same moving forward. I mean, here again, I see parts of my human design where I get so focused on the vision and so focused on the direction that I want to go and almost kind of stuck in this fantasy realm that can really, I can struggle through that as well.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing. So both of those, whether it's too much for far in the future or in the past, that's a poor mental diet for me if I spin on either of those.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I do the same. I can do that same thing. As a matter of fact, I think I told you yesterday was I had gone through some of my art journals and I had gone through um a a journal that I had from 2020 and I was just like, whoa. And the art journals, I remembered, I'm looking through all of them and I'm like, I remember doing this. I remember this. And I remember the state of mind I was in and I'm like, I started to, I started thinking, maybe I haven't advanced as far as I thought I had. You know what I mean? I'm looking back at that and I'm like, dang, I haven't learned anything. But I mean, I know I have, and I had to really just put it down and be like, that's, it's a good reflection, but it's not. There's a lot. I've had a lot more learning that I think I have a lot more learning. I've learned a lot more.
All of the above, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some practical tips or things that help you really to create a different experience in your mind?
So my I think the biggest thing for me is listening to the positive things. The gratitude practices is like the number one thing that I do that really keeps me uh, focused on that all the positive things that are going on in my life, all the positive things that um, even the lessons. So, with gratitude, it's not just about being positive. It's about being grateful for the lessons I've learned, and like, I mean, even just like being grateful for looking back at that, those things, and taking those lessons from looking back, and being grateful for it, being grateful for those lessons I learned then and the lessons I learn now. It's about being grateful for all the things that I have now and about being grateful for even the simple little things like, running water, which most people, I mean, a lot of people don't have right now. So, um, that is one of probably the biggest thing for me. I know I have to watch scrolling social media. I have to really pay attention to that. And especially on the weekends because during the week I'm able to stay off it more because I'm focused on whatever I'm doing. And so I still every once in a while I'll jump on what's going on and I have to set those boundaries with myself. Um, and then I can't watch the news. I have not been able to watch the news for years. Every so often I'll look if I'm like I feel like I need um if I feel like I might need to get caught up on world affairs, I'll glance at a few things and then that's it. I can't go down those rabbit holes. I can't see what's going on that way. It messes with me way too much. And the watching the shows I'm putting in my mind, I have to really pay attention to that and um not I was just telling Joe yesterday. I'm like, Joe, I think we're going to get Gaia TV because I can't watch these these shows anymore. And he loves those. He loves the vampire movies and the cop movies and all the violent beat 'em up shows and I they didn't used to bother me. They bother me now. So I'm like, I can't. I need to limit that. And yeah, so those are some of the things. I mean, like, and then listening to, uh, like I said earlier, I listen to podcasts. I'm listening to a lot of, right now, it's Joe Dispenza books. I've done the positive mindset shit for years. And so I've listened to, I used to love Chicken Soup for the Soul with, Canfield, is that who he was?
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Covey. I've listened to all of those, and I love all those. And like even now, even listening to Zig Ziglar, who is older, or um, Jim Rohn, who is another one that's their classic, but they all have the same message, And so I found new podcasts, and I've listened to the old ones, and Wayne Dyer and all that. And so those are some really good ones to really good ways, bringing in those good positive books. And for me, that's right now, especially right now, that's where I need to be focusing my mind on is um, bringing in all those positive things that I can.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, I echo a lot of what you've said, but I recognize for myself, probably one of the biggest things for me is really regulating my energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I've over the last couple weeks finally started prioritizing sleep. And it's not like I wake up feeling so amazing yet. I've figured I've got a lot of years of sleep neglect that I need to work through, um, but it has been very important to me. And I am intuitively noticing that there's a shift, even though I'm not outwardly sensing it or feeling it or anything. So even something like that can help me with prioritizing my sleep. I actually have this week also scheduled in my schedule breaks where I could either take a nap or do a meditation or something to help me disconnect through in the middle of the day. It's not like hours, it's 20, 30 minutes, but power nap or some meditation. Um, and then also something that I recognize I get caught in is um, because I do believe in really this mindset of if it doesn't uplift you or if it doesn't inspire you, then why are you allowing this into your mind? And I also know that I have a lot of conditioning about what is okay for me to put into my mind that I really kind of have to work through. So, for example, I love um, I love beautiful music. I love I actually have like a Reiki playlist that I have in my phone for when I do Reiki sessions that's instrumental or kind of spa music, right? It's very calming, very relaxing, very beautiful. I like um and then I have some that's kind of witchy sounding,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still very instrumental, still very beautiful. And I can those can spiral me negatively if I am not if that's all I'm consuming. And some of the stuff that really does lift me up and make me feel amazing is my good old 80s hair bands.
Yeah.
I love that and I feel a shift um in my energy when I put that on and it lifts me up, which therefore lifts up my mindset as well. And even the other day, I don't remember what I was on just a um, random playlist and Black Eyed Peas came up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't listened to this in so long." And that really lifted my spirits, it lifted my energy, it lifted my mental wellness. And it was so funny because I remember thinking back in the day I had been conditioned that all my 80, Poison was
Mm.
bad for me.
Yeah.
Metallica
Yeah.
was of the devil, all that
Mm-hmm.
nonsense that I believed for a while and or at least I don't know if I ever really believed it, but I conformed. I was trying to be the
Mm-hmm.
good girl. And I mean that stuff makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I feel myself rising into my power. So really like even allowing myself to be honest with what is it that I need right now in this moment? Do I need the spa music or do I need some good old poison?
Mm-hmm.
Um so yeah, those are some things that inspiration can come in a variety of ways. You know,
Hmm.
it might be
Yeah.
Metallica, it might be
Yeah.
Motley Crue, and it might be, some of those other very nice, calming,
Hmm.
loving
Flute
songs.
music. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. And I totally agree with that. Um, some of the like when I do my drum circles, we
And you
have
make me
them.
cry.
Yeah. Well, sometimes,
Yeah,
but
that one song,
that
the
uplifting
fight
music
song.
is, yeah, and the fight song, yeah. Because that music is it triggers emotion in us, right? So we have, we do like one of our favorite songs is "Man, I Feel Like a Woman," man, and that triggers all this happy emotion, and it helps us to get in that happy place, before we go home. And then I play other songs that are a little bit more emotional depending on what's going on, and we start off with some kind of emotion or something that's going to give them that empowering emotion that's going to help. So I think music is probably one of the best things that we can shift. But there are some forms of music that are definitely not good for us, and we have to kind of be aware of some of the lyrics sometimes, because sometimes those lyrics unconsciously affect us in ways that we don't understand. So yeah, we do. Uh, you know, I love music too. I'm like you, and for me, it's good old Waylon Jennings or yeah. Although I'm very eclectic in the way in my music, but sometimes Elvis, I want to listen to some Elvis, or I want to listen to Waylon, or I want to listen to George Strait or something, and so for me, but then I turn around and I love Motley Crue. I love, those 80s hair bands, Poison. And so, or then I like the 70s music, so it's kind of like I listen to it all. But yeah, just be aware of some of those lyrics too, because some of them are not really good for us. The other thing that I, that really helps me is being creative. And whether it's I like to make all kinds of stuff. So I do beadwork, I do make smudging fans, I make drums, I make rattles. But no matter what it is, but then I also like to paint, and I'd like to art journal and things like that. And I haven't been art journaling like I used to. I draw mandalas all the time. And drawing the mandalas, especially like right now, and especially like if I'm sitting in the living room with Joe and he's watching a movie that's not I can't watch, I'll sit and I'll draw that mandala. And sometimes I have to put headphones on and not hear them whatever he's watching on TV. But just being able to focus on something like that too really helps me to get out of that. Um, helps to make sure that I'm putting better things in my mind. And so with the mandala, it's more of a meditation too. So
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do to, I mean, even getting outside, being in nature, just putting your feet on the ground, or going outside and listening to the river, or wherever you're at, go sit by a tree or something. Um, those are some good ways to bring in that good energy and it helps with the mind. It helps your mindset so much. So,
Yep, I love that. That's one of my favorite things too, is to just go be outside for a minute.
mhm.
And I love my inside. I love my house. I feel so good inside my house, but sometimes I still need to absorb different energy and being
Mhm.
outside where there's trees and grass. And I know even though it's winter, the other day I showed you, I sent you a picture
Yeah.
and I had my bare feet in the
Yeah.
right next to the snow in the grass. And I just needed it for a minute to just be able to, have I mean, it's still my home, my property, but slightly different energy. And it's being able to connect with the earth has been really helpful for me in a lot of
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah, definitely. I did that same thing a couple of days ago too. So
Hmm.
just went out and stood outside, took a deep breath, and was just like, oh, thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think too that some of the stuff that impacts our mental wellness and even our energy are the relationships and the people that we're around. And so learning how to support others without absorbing their issues. Um, what are some ways that you've been able to do that? What do you do in that situation for you?
So what I talked about earlier was a, a hygiene, mental or energetic hygiene, which would be just like clearing. So in Reiki, we do what we call dry brushing, which is just like brushing off that energy. And that's all you have to do is just kind of like go outside, get away from everybody and just kind of brush it off. Or even and really you don't even have to do that. You can kind of shake it off or just have that intention of just releasing other people's energy. And that will help you to um, clear that energy. So then you know that. So then once you're cleared that energy and you don't understand that it's not yours, the other thing that I really like to do is like just kind of go it within for a minute. And if I'm not sure if if I have picked something up, so say I'm feeling crappy or I'm feeling grumpy or something after I've been around other people, I like to just sit with myself for a minute and just be like, okay, is this mine? And just asking myself that question, is this mine? And that right there, I usually get the clarity pretty quick of yes or no, this is not mine, or this is mine. And then I can just be like, okay, release. It's not mine. Release it. And I know you're like the queen of this is not mine. Your
I'm
default
like,
is
I
it's
just,
not mine.
yeah, my default is I'm not taking that. It's not mine.
Yeah. Yep.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good way to, after you've had those interactions, but also like um shielding if we're going to be in a situation and we know it might be mentally draining or it might be we might possibly be picking up something from them or you can just build a shield around yourself, energetic shield, and it's real easy. It's as simple as just imagining a bubble around you and with the intention of not allowing anything that's not for my highest good in. And those that will help to um, shield you from picking up their energy if you're wanting to help somebody, you're wanting to be with somebody. When I do my drum circles, um I tend to be a little bit more open, but I do have that shield and and when we do Reiki sessions or whatever, we always will shield up so that we can help them, but not in a way that or not in a way that we're absorbing or we're taking away from them, taking that energy away from them. Um, so yeah, and there's, different ways that you can, like I said, about clearing your energy. It would be um, those practices I said, or Reiki session, or meditation would be just like what I was saying about just taking that minute too and just, doing that inner reflection and is this mine? And how can I clear that? So yeah, or breath work or, different things like that can help you.
I feel like for me, Reiki is my superpower in a way,
Yeah.
but it's my go-to, and I use it all the time. And I
Mhm.
do self Reiki on myself every single day. Very rarely do I miss a day. Usually, if I'm sick or maybe it's at a different time because I woke up late or something, but I'm clearing my energy on a daily basis and I'm cutting anything that doesn't belong to me. But also when um one thing that's been helpful is even setting an intention. You can do this with Reiki, but you can also just do this, right? To be fully present with that individual in that moment. And what I mean by that is, and maybe this, I mean, this is a projector
Yeah.
superpower for sure. But to be able to, like, I tune other things out and I'm just really intent on this individual that's in front of me, especially when I'm helping others and supporting them through their challenges. I don't want to take that on. And I have found that one of the times when I do start taking things on is when I start um not fully listening to them, where I'm listening to respond, I'm listening to look, it's like, oh, how am I going to fix this? And I start getting in my head even while they're talking and sharing their experience, and in my mind it's almost like I'm trying to fix it. I'm looking for solutions, or I'm tying it to my own experience in life. And for me, that is one of the quickest ways that we end up taking other people's shit on, is because we're personalizing it. It's looking for either A, what am I going to share to be able to fix this for you? And then I start freaking out, right? Because I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to help them? And my mind starts spinning on that. Or I start relating to it based on my own personal experiences. And in typical conversation, that's okay, where we're able to, oh, yeah. And then that time when I went to
Hmm.
Disneyland, and then we share our experience, that's how people connect. But when someone is in a negative headspace, or they're going through something difficult, or they're coming to you for coaching or whatever work may be, I feel like one of the best ways to really be able to protect your own energy is to genuinely be 100% focused on the conversation and just listening. And then it's not coming in because I'm just listening to them share their experience. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just so fully present in that moment, um, that it really can't attach. I'm not personalizing, I'm not taking it on. And then I'm also letting them share, and I'm letting them have their experience, and um, without taking ownership of any of their experience. I hope that makes
Hmm.
sense. It makes sense in
Yeah.
my in
Yeah.
what I do. Um, and that's not an energy practitioner thing either. That is a you can cultivate that skill where you're
Hmm.
just listening very intently. I think that's why I was so good at my previous work, because I worked in crisis response, and I didn't take a lot of that on or home. And the ones that I did were the ones that I overly identified with, where I could tie it into my own experience, or their kids were the same ages as my kids, and I could almost personalize my kids going through something. And so the more we can kind of mentally allow ourselves to be in the conversation, the more we kind of create a protective barrier around ourselves in a way.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The other thing is setting some healthy boundaries and
And that
not
is part of what that would be too.
guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And without guilt. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that would definitely be part of that. So,
Mm-hmm. And I think the guilt comes in when we again start identifying and trying to figure out how to fix it, or what to
mhm,
do, or and when we think about things like, oh, my life is going so great and this person's is not, and it's almost like we feel guilty for our own experience that we're having that
right.
may not be negative. And or we may be talking to someone who wants us to feel guilty
Yep.
because that makes them feel better, so we have the manipulative aspect on there as well.
Mm.
So I really love what you said about that, being able to set those boundaries without guilt.
Yeah.
Because I know, especially in the healing world, and that what those of us who are empaths, it's almost like we feel like we need to bring that on to make their burden lighter, and then we end up carrying everybody's bricks in a backpack, and before long we're broken, like we're
Yeah.
stopped, where our car no longer will move, not
Right.
broken ourselves, but like our vehicle isn't working anymore.
Hmm.
So I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some practices that you would do to build, like to detox, so we're in this spot, we've taken on too much, we're in the negative spiral. What are some things that you do to help detox?
I talked about the gratitude practice and creating a morning routine. So it'd be like creating, for me, my morning routine consists of, and I've been building this for months now, years, trying to get it the way that works right for me, right? Um, but what has really worked for me is that um, first thing in the morning meditation. And I know um, I struggled with meditation for a long time, and meditation was one that I was like, I can only do it at certain times of the year and blah blah. And I'm finding that that was a story that I was telling myself. Um, and so meditation, so we'll just go back to my routine. And so my routine is I'm, you know, meditation and then gratitude, writing down all the things that I'm grateful for and why. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll write down all the things I'm grateful for, and then I'll write down why am I grateful for these things, or I'm grateful for this because blah blah blah, and I write down paragraphs. I don't just write down lists of things. And so I'll write down a paragraph and allow myself to feel the gratitude for that. And the meditations that I do are on gratitude. They're more about being grateful. They're more about and that's just what works for me. It doesn't it's whatever works for you, but that's for me, it's those meditations are more about gratitude and more about um creating the life I want and that type of thing. So but it's all about gratitude. And then so that's my I get up, I do the meditation, I do my journaling, and if I have time, I do some morning pages. I write down, just start writing. And I just started that one. And then I get dressed and I go for a walk. And those are the three things that have really helped me to really change my mindset. And I really feel like a morning routine or morning ritual is probably one of the best things that we can do, because what do we do if we first thing in the morning we get up, we check our phone, we look at the news, we scroll social media for a while, we do all those things, and next thing we know, our mind is off into that world, right? And we're not um, and that's when we start the spiral. We start to think about the negative. And so if we can stop ourselves from I try to stay off of social media or any kind of electronics, except for I do listen to my meditation on my electronics, but I try not to open any of those things for at least an hour after I get up. And in doing that, that helps me to, so that I'm not jumping out into the world and seeing all those things that are going on in the world. And um, it allows me to just kind of do my thing, and I'm focused on taking care of me. And that's the thing. That's what this is all about too, is that um we talked about self-love last week in our video, and that's the thing about this, is it's all about self-love. I think it um we're doing this to care for ourselves. And the other thing is, like what you said, you're prioritizing sleep. So being off electronics an hour before bed is one of the best things that I do for myself. If I and even watching movies or watching TV or because like Joe loves to watch those History Channel shows. I don't know. There's all kinds of them, ancient aliens, all the things, and so um, I go to my room and read a book or something before bed, or um, do those mandalas or whatever before I go to bed. And but putting my phone in the room, oh, I bring it in here. I don't ever sleep with my phone in my room. And I bring it in here, plug it in, and just leave it an hour before bed. And that helps me to wind down and helps my mind to be cool. So um, I've tried the social media free weekends, and that is so, it's like a relief, when you can just like delete those off of your phone and they're not there and you're not. And at first, like what I do, I know I'll go and I'll be like, oh, what's going on, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have it. And it feels good. I don't do that as often as I should, because I really know it's really helpful to do those social media free weekends. Um, and then just listening to the uplifting, positive podcasts or books or whatever, So I think those are some of the main things I think that would help in building that practice up. So, what about you? What do you do?
Yeah, for me, it goes back to um, really looking at your self-awareness and without judgment and full honesty. So my more struggle that what I've been working through is my evening routine, more so even than my morning. I've got a pretty good morning routine. First thing I do, because when I wake up, my mind is ready to roll. It's like, hey, so
Mm-hmm.
meditation for me, right? First thing in the morning is a struggle, but I can do my self-healing Reiki every morning, first thing. So I like to do that in the morning because then even if my mind's going a little bit, I can um, still do the Reiki. So that's a practice for me that I do before I'm even out of bed. And then a little bit later, I can do my meditation or at any time during the day. Um, but I've noticed for myself, I don't have a specific evening routine, but I recognize that I just need an off button. And the only person that's going to give me that is me. Because if anyone else tried to tell me to shut it off, then I'm going to just be mad and don't tell me how to live my life,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I have to really look at I love to read at night, but I have to look at what is the book? Is it one that will allow me to relax and go to bed, or is it stimulating and it's going to keep me awake? So if I were to say I want to read every night, yes, but I have to be very intentional again about what I'm reading, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if it's putting me in that state that allows me to prioritize sleep or not. Um, Same with learning. I love to learn. I'm always learning in some way or another, but I can really get into a unhealthy cycle of binge learning, and so I really have to be aware of, am I actually able to consume this right now, or is it late enough in the evening that I'm not going to retain any of it? And I know, and I believe that we know that intuitively. So
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it's like now I'm just trying to relieve the pressure of needing to learn versus, setting that aside. So for me, what I'm currently doing is this type of awareness. I'm being super aware. Is this helpful for me? Is it not? Um, and really and that's where I'm starting. I don't have a super consistent evening routine. So this is what I'm doing to build one. I like to read. I want to read. Um, so, so I'm choosing books that will allow me to go to sleep, and help me kind of simmer down rather than rile me up. And then what else is it that I might need? Do I need some meditation to be able to do that? Do I need to do another Reiki clearing, just a quick, ending of the day, releasing anything? Um, those are some of the practices that I'm using to detox my mind right now. Um, and I think being able to, so one thing that I learned in college was that our brain spins on whatever it was that we last put into our mind before we went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fabulous for test taking, right? Because it's not when you go to bed, it's like when you lay down, it's when you go to sleep. So if you're one who, you go to bed like an hour before or 30 minutes before, it was really in college days for me, it was studying right up until I'm falling asleep. And then in your sleep, your brain will continue to process and really help you remember that. And let me tell you, that is a hack that worked wonders for me in college. Now, however, if what I put into my head right before I go to sleep is fear based, stuff.
Hmm.
If it's something that's not supportive to my wellness, then I wake up in the morning first thing freaking out about whatever that was. And so I'm it's for me it is it's about being very aware but also very intentional about what I'm consuming when I'm going to bed, throughout my day. Um, so that's one of the things that's been the most helpful and impactful for me is awareness and intention,
Yeah,
specifically around my nighttime routines.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And then I also think being very honest with yourself about what you need to let go of, you know. And sometimes that's hard because the things that we do every day are the things we love to do, right?
Hmm.
And so it doesn't have to be about restriction, but it is looking at, is this really helping me? And like I was saying, even if it's overconsumption of the healing journey, those kind of things. Like if those are the things I'm watching at the end of the day, then I'm spinning on where my life's not where I want it to be yet. And
Hmm.
that's also, so that's something that I have to let go of, even though I love consuming that information. That's another thing. And that is extreme honesty with ourselves. So we're the only ones who are going to know. No one's going to come around and check the list to see what you're looking at. But,
Right.
um, yeah,
Yeah, it's about a balance, right? Because we can overconsume the good stuff too. It's like all these positive things, we can overconsume that. So, we do have a balance, or if we can try to create some type of a balance that's to where we're not over-consuming, but we're not um, allowing in all the negative too. So, um, yeah, it's a lot about balance.
I would love to know from the listeners if you would share in the comments one thing that you'll do differently as a result of this episode. I would love to know um, whether it was something that we said, or maybe you had an intuitive spark or an inspirational spark that is completely different from anything that we said. Just something of, oh, that would be helpful for me. Please put that in the comments below because I'd love to hear and be able to interact with you there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And think about the content that you can consume or that you want to consume, and think about how what you're doing right now is affecting you. And if it is affecting you, what can you do differently?
I love it. So, is there anything else that you would like to share or make sure that they hear?
Nope, I think that was it.
I feel good with that too. So, if this conversation resonated with you, please make sure to share it with your friends. Spreading this through word of mouth is the best way for us to be able to have this message go far. And of course, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you don't miss our next conversation. And then check the comments below. We've got some good stuff down there for you, or the description down below. We've got
Description,
ways
yeah.
for you to find both of us, ways for you to learn how to work with both of us, and then we've got some special goodies down there for you as well. So make sure you check
Mhm.
that out.
Awesome.
All right. And with that, we'll be back with you soon.
All right, we'll see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.